Last night I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm surprised nobody's made a fan fiction about me and Tombstone or me and Lulz or what the fuck ever, right? And then suddenly I get linked to a Google Doc and I think to myself, oh god, what is this atrocity? And then I open it up and the title of it reads, Mike X Lulz X Cyril. And I think to myself, oh god, it's finally happened. So, for today's dramatic reading, before I actually finally get off my lazy ass and go finish I'm Not Okay, I Promise, we're going to read a fanfiction called Mike X Lulz X Cyril, written by the Brotastic Brony and bro-written and edited by Seeth4. So here we go, this is Mike X Lulz X Cyril, written by the Brotastic Brony. Mike was sitting alone on a bench on a sunny afternoon, the warm spring breeze pushing his hair into his eyes. He was listening to one of his recent tracks with his headphones, which could somehow play music despite not being connected to any sort of music-playing device. As the wind swept through the wine groves of Flancramento, his piercing blue eyes gazed at the horizon as if looking for inspiration in its unspoiled blue splendor. Princess Trelestia, however, decided to intrude on this pony's peace and sent blazing sun rays through the atmosphere, directing the shine onto Mike's eyes. With his hooves covering his face to avoid temporary blindness, Mike got off the wooden bench and trotted off into the Flancramento plains. The plains were full of hard, brown stalks. Mike couldn't handle the thought of thinking how deliciously hard the stalks would be in his mouth. The thought of this made him get an unbearably large erection. He could no longer control himself and lunged at a particularly thick stalk. He began to suck at the stalk viciously while simultaneously clopping. The pleasure that Mike experienced from sucking a hard, brown object was unreal, and before long he was doused in semen. Exhausted, Mike ate all of his man marmalade and went back to his house. Mike had been invited to a party by his good friend Lulz, scheduled for tonight at 9 p.m. sharp, so he had to prepare. He put on his best leather trench coat, the dark browns contrasting nicely with his mane, and replaced his headphones with chrome-textured metallic headphones. Lulz's house was only 30 minutes away, so at 8:30 he set on his way, blasting Beyond Her Tomb loudly through his wireless headphones. Lulz had a party planned, but not one Mike expected. It was a special party for them only. Lulz gelled his pubic hair and began and refrained himself from clopping to Futashai. He would need to save himself from Mike. The mere thought of what he was going to do to Mike sent his penis rising to the heavens. Suddenly, a knock on Lulz's door. Lulz was flustered and trying to hide his nearly orgasming erection. It had to be a surprise for Mike. The door swung open and there stood Mike, tall and gallant with a hint of Axe body spray surrounding him like an aura of manliness. Suddenly, Lulz could not control himself any longer, and his pulsating cock swung up like a magnet attracted to Mike and slapped him around the side of the face. The flying cock came back around for more and donked Lulz right in the head, knocking both of them unconscious. It just so happened that Cyril the Pegasus would be flying by as the cock of death retracted to its hideaway. Cyril looked down in horror at the two unconscious ponies and swooped down to see if he could help. Cyril decided to help as best he knew how and took both the dazzled ponies inside and lay them on Lulz's bed. To the Pegasi's surprise, the bed was covered in rose petals, and while this confused Cyril, he decided to dismiss it, that and the overturned picture of Futashai laying on the bedside table. As Cyril lay Lulz down, he couldn't help but notice how much he seemed prepped up, as if awaiting for something special tonight. The delicately washed orange fur covering him from flank to ear, the spiked yet soft red mane showing off the sharp features of his face. Yes, Cyril had never seen Lulz look quite this alluring. And although Cyril had a girlfriend back at his home, he had never quite felt how he did right at this very moment. Trying to hide his feelings, he glanced over at Mike only to be greeted with similar results. His dashing good looks and the fancy trench coat only added to the effect. Cyril glanced down in shame only to be greeted with a familiar friend. Suddenly, Pumph! The scary sound that haunts all Pegasi that can only mean one thing. Cyril's worst fears coming true. He knew the loud sound of his raging wing boner would wake up the sleeping ponies, and so he hid under the bed where Lulz and Mike lay. He didn't know how long he could last, however, with the passion of 10,000 suns burning brightly inside his wing boners.
What the... Lulz?
Mike was awake and aroused before Lulz, and curious as ever. Mike remembered the wheat fields and ideas rushed into his head, as Lulz lay there innocently on the bed. Mike began to feel his primal tendencies take over. He began to lick Lulz's nipples in rhythmic motion. But he needed more. Much, much more. And in a fit of pure passion, Mike plunged his penis into Lulz's anus, creating an explosion of ecstasy. Lulz could not help but scream in pleasure as his anus expanded as wide as it could go. He had always loved Mike more than a friend, but he never expected him to be this good in bed. Mike had acknowledged that Lulz was awake by pounding harder and licking his nipples faster. While all this was going on, Cyril was able to hear everything that was going on. The moaning, the slurping, and the overbearing sense of ecstasy coming from the room. When Cyril could finally no longer keep his cool, he burst from under the cover screaming, "Cyril coming at you! Before Mike and Lulz could react, Cyril was already shoving his wings into their poop chutes. Screaming in surprise, Lulz thought he would give Cyril a surprise of his own, and shoved his wing boner into Cyril's mouth. With everybody gagging on each other, the room was filled with a steamy gay aura. Mike climaxed first with a dramatic yell, "Oh God!" covering the room in sticky strands of pony semen. Mike lay on the bed panting and watched Lulz and Cyril continue the fun. Lulz was sensually slobbering seductively, submerging Cyril in slick saliva. Lulz laid on his bed with his manhood nearly rubbing the roof of the house. Cyril then slowly rubbed his Pegasus wings up and down his slender shaft in repeating manner, the soft feathers slowly caressing the magnificent penis until finally, with one quick tug of his wings, Cyril finished Lulz off, causing a shower of white confetti to rain upon all three homo-homie ponies. Lulz passed out at that moment, which meant Cyril had to finish himself off, making sure to give both Lulz and Mike an equal share of the prize once he was done. Once Cyril had collapsed in exhaustion, Dwight came out of the closet. As he was hiding in the closet, all the screaming and moaning of his friends finally convinced him to come out. He crept out and looked at Lulz's naked sleeping body. He felt extremely aroused, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like he had to hide who he was. And that's how Equestria was made. The end. Sign, Bro. Editor's note. I am so sorry, Dwight. I had way too much fun making this. I'm not even sure of my own sexual identity anymore. Seethe. Was that not a very enchanting story? Anyways, let the shipping wars begin. This has been Mike the Microphone's reading of Mike X Lulz X Cyril. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.